we are privileged to have with us once again Mrs. Hannatu Sule Asiedukran, who is a health professional, to take us through on the topic sickle cell. Thank you once again, madam, for coming, and you're welcome to Great Television.
Thank you.
We are here to talk about sickle cell. When we talk about sickle cell, what is sickle cell?
Okay, so sickle cell disease, or sickle cell anemia, as it is known, is it's a long-term condition, and it's hereditary. And by hereditary, we mean you get it from your parents, or you're born with it.
Okay.
So and it's a condition where it's a disease where constantly one has lower levels of blood. So as the name implies, anemia, and you have low levels of blood simply because genetically the red blood cells don't live for long, and then they're normally round, and then they don't stay round, and then they tend to take a sickle shape, like a crescent, you know, when the moon is coming up. So that's where the name sickle cell anemia came from. So basically, it's a long-term condition. It's got to do with the blood, and it's characterized by mainly constantly being anemic, or clinically anemic.
Okay. So we now know what it is. What are the causes of the disease?
Okay. So it's hereditary, like I said. So you know, everyone gets our DNA. We get half of it from our mothers and half from your father. So for you, Christina, for example, all your DNA, half of it is from what your mom gave you, and then half from what your dad gave you. Now, so when it comes to our red blood cells, or the hemoglobin, actually the hemoglobin on the red blood cells, and hemoglobin is responsible for carrying oxygen in the blood. The gene in our DNA that we get that gives it that instruction to carry out that function. One of it is an A. It's supposed to be an A. And then somehow, when there's some mutation, and when we say mutation, when there's some change in the structure, then it is now referred to as an S. So that's where we talk about A and S when it comes to sickling. So when you get two S's, that form of that gene from your parents, so one from your mother and one from your father, and you have the two and coming together, then that's a condition where you know, we'll say that you have the disease. So mainly the cause is you getting the gene from your parents, basically. So that's the cause. It's not like eating something and then you get sickle cell. You're actually born with it, and well, actually you don't have any control. It's just the gene that's passed on to you that results in you having the disease.
Okay, is it likely that all kids born within that family will get that sickle cell, like the SS from?
No. Okay, so what happens is, like I said, you get one set of genes from your mother and one from your father. So if you happen to get both S's from your parents, and one from mother, one from father, then you have the two S's, then you, or you know, the other forms of the sickle cell, which we can talk about later, then you're considered to have the disease. There'll be an occasion where you get one S from one parent, and then the other code is not an S, but it's a normal A. So to say, the normal hemoglobin structure. So in a case where somebody is born with an A and an S, then they're considered to have the trait, or they are a carrier. And then also you can have just somebody being born with AA, and you know, those people don't have nothing to do with sickle cell at all. So that's the normal. So that's what the normal gene and the DNA is supposed to be. So it is when it goes through that change in structure, or the mutation as we call it, then you have what we call the S, and that's what happens. So for, like you said, in a family, is it possible for all children to have? It is possible. So it depends on what the parents come with. If you have, and there are different mutations or combinations, if I should say, different combinations of it. So if you have one parent having the trait, so the parent is AS or AC, etc., and then the other parent is AA, then for each time there's conception, there's a possible, so it's like a lottery, so to say. It's like the possibility, the probability that child conceived will carry one S and one A. So they're different. So if you have one parent with AA and AS, then there's a 25% chance or 1 in 4 chance of them having the trait.
Yeah.
Because the S goes with an A, so one from the mother, one from the father. If you have so the cases where we tend to have the probability or the chances of getting those with the actual disease commonly is when you have both parents being carriers, because you have one AS and the other person is one AS. So each time there's actually a 50% chance, or there's so 50-50 of. And what I'm talking about is each time there's a conception. So say you can have 4 children and all 4 can have it. Or you can have 4 children, all 4 can be AA, because each time. So the stress here is each time there's a child
like
from
a rotation,
conception, the possibility or the probability of having an AA or an SS child. And of course, if you have 2 parents who both have the disease, then you're sure that each child will have it. But if you have the mixture, that's when there's a chance of getting this or the other. But of course, you can't determine what you get. Of course, now there's so much. There's technology, or there's so much advancement in medicine that with IVF, etc., and selective embryo technology. Sometimes they're able to these health professionals or scientists are able to select actually which embryo is without the trait, etc. And actually that service is available as well for parents who've had children. They can choose, but that's a different ethical issue we can talk about on a different platform.
Okay. Well, viewers, we are talking. If you just logged on to our Facebook page, we are discussing on the topic sickle cell. You can post your questions on our Facebook page. That is on Great Television, and we will give you your answers. I want to know how is sickle cell disease treated, and is there a cure for the disease?
Okay, so the sickle cell disease itself is a long-term condition, as I said. Some time ago, they would say there's no cure. It's just a case of management, managing the symptoms that manifest as a result of the condition. But now, thankfully, there is a cure. I mean, there's a long-term cure in a way, which includes stem cell therapy, bone marrow transplants, etc., which have been found. I mean, there are a few trials that have gone on, and there are a few cases that have happened, especially in the United States and other parts of the world where they've actually worked, where people now are cured. But generally, yes, there is effective management of the condition, of the disease, and you have people, some time ago, decades ago, people would normally expect that people with born with sickle cell, they wouldn't live beyond, say, their 18th birthday or even their 5th birthday, as a child. But now there's so much advancement that people could live. The other day I heard there was an 80-year-old woman who was celebrated her 80th birthday, and she's got sickle cell. So there's so much out there. There's medication, there's so much awareness out there, and people can look after themselves and then live longer. So there are effective ways of managing it.
Okay. And are there any medications that people can take because I've heard about this folic acid, which they take, and then some vitamins, and then so I want to know if there's any medication, because I remember we went on an outreach in Ghana and someone asked a question. The question was a bit funny. They were saying when they have sickle cell, they are in pain, but when they take in alcohol, it brings down the pain. So they were asking if alcohol was something good. So if you can. Okay.
So one characteristic feature of the sickle cell disease is that patients or people sufferers tend to have painful episodes, what we call crisis. Now this is as a result of, like I said earlier on, the red blood cells, they're supposed to be round and like the donut shape. But when the system is starved of, usually it happens when they're starved of oxygen, then the cell, because of that missing code or that change in structure in your gene, the message doesn't get sent properly. So then, because the moment there's a change in the condition, then that normal red blood cell now takes the sickle shape.
Okay.
Now, normal red blood cells are able to go through our blood vessels. They're very flexible, they're soft, they go through the blood vessels to distribute oxygen in the body. But when it turns to sickle, that shape, that crescent shape, then it becomes stiff and brittle, and they're not able to go through the vessels, the veins, and the arteries smoothly. Then they block, parts of it. And when it blocks and the blood is not able to move, and that's when most of the time it happens at the joints and then the back, etc. So that's what results in the pain. And apparently it's very, very excruciating pain. And sometimes I've heard people describe it as, close to labor pains or even more than that, very, very painful. And that's what we call crisis. So those episodes, those painful episodes are called crisis. Now, and then also another thing is sickle cell sufferers are very prone to catching infections very easily. So, they get sick quite often, So the main thing is to manage these symptoms, like I said. So what do you do to prevent infection? So they're usually prescribed prophylactic doses of antibiotics. And in this country, and in mostly, the common one is penicillin. So just prophylactic amount means very small amounts to prevent infections, because normally they would easily catch an infection that the normal person would not normally. So we want to prevent them from getting the infection, because catching those infections will lead to the red blood cells being destroyed more quickly, and then they get more painful episodes, what we call crisis. And then also, because they are prone to infections, it's good to make sure that their mineral and vitamin levels are high. So you get things like, extra vitamins being prescribed. And then with folic acid is that nutrient, that vitamin that helps with forming normal red blood cells in our body. So if your body is because with the disease, they are breaking the normal life cycle of a red blood cell is 180 days. So that's 3 months. But then with sickle cell, it becomes less, about half of that period. So if you're losing your red blood cells quicker, then you need something to build them up. So then the issue of folic acid comes in. So commonly you will find these people taking folic acid, penicillin, which is the most common antibiotic used. And then also they would have other vitamins, supplements, just to make sure that they're keeping. And then another feature is also to stay hydrated all the time, because most of the time they tend to have, their blood tends to be slightly thicker because of the breaking down of the cells. And then also another feature, they tend to be jaundiced a bit, because when red blood cells and hemoglobin is being broken down in the system, and the liver does, a lot of that, and the kidneys, they work together. Part of the breakdown, it produces what we call bilirubin. It's like that's very technical. It's like a protein, and that's what gives us the yellowing of the urine, for example. So because their system is breaking down a lot of their cells quite often, you get more like an overload of it most of the time, more than the normal person who doesn't have that condition. So and then that can cause the yellowing of the skin or the eyes. So that's another common feature. So again, to manage that, the best thing is to stay hydrated, drink a lot of water, so that it can help to flush that out quite quickly. So I guess that covers the management or treatment, management of the condition. Coming to that question about alcohol, I would imagine this person, when they are going through that pain, and like I said, I've heard from people sufferers saying that, it's so painful that for some people, taking that alcohol is like just numbing that pain for them, but it's not like it's actually treating the condition. So maybe he's found a survival tip for himself, but I wouldn't advise alcohol to manage that kind of pain. Normal painkillers do usually help with that.
Okay. Yes. And are there any special diets, like what kind of special food do they need? Like you said, they need vitamins and other stuff. What kind of special food?
So generally, people with sickle cell disease are advised to eat very healthily, to eat properly, to eat well, make sure that they're eating very balanced diet, nutritious diets. But I must say also, there are certain foods that help when it comes to the disease, in that there is, so for example, I'll give an example. Something like yam and cassava and cocoyam. These foodstuffs naturally come with a chemical called thiocyanate. Okay. Now this chemical has the ability to prevent sickling of the cell or breaking down of our red blood cells. Okay. So naturally with these foods, and if you look at it, this disease is common with West Africans particularly, well, black Africans, Caribbean, Asian background, and Mediterranean background. It's not normally with Caucasians. And if you find these foods are actually found in these areas, so you know nature has a way of you know taking care of things. But so some of these foods have this chemical in there, and is able to minimize the rate of breakdown or sickling of the cells. So so sometimes you find people saying, oh well, it's good to give them a lot of yam or a lot of cassava or cocoyam because it helps to minimize the rate of the sickling. But yes, but generally they need to eat very healthily and make sure that they're well all the time, you know, staying hydrated, so not just eating anyhow. Because again, they are prone to infection, so you don't want to push them to that side, yes.
Yeah. And we talk about them going through pains, and I've heard it comes with other diseases like acute malaria, is it jaundice and all this?
Okay, yes, so the jaundice is what I mentioned, that the jaundice is because of the constant breakdown of the red blood cells. So that, because it's more than usual, you tend to have, and it's that protein I just mentioned, that bilirubin, that's what causes jaundice. Jaundice is just a situation where you have too much of that in your system, so it shows up in if the system is not getting rid of it quickly enough, and usually we get rid of it. Everybody produces that because we break down protein and things in our bodies, and it comes out through our urine. But for people with sickle cell, because they're breaking down these cells very quickly or quicker than the normal person, you tend to have high amounts in their system, and then if their system doesn't get rid of it quickly, that's when it shows on the skin and in the eyes, and then we say that they are jaundiced. So that's what jaundice is. But with other, in extreme conditions where the symptoms are not managed properly, and for people who get very frequent crises, meaning that they're getting more and more infections, it could lead to other organ damage. So it could affect other organs in the system, commonly the liver, the kidney, and then the spleen. Because another feature with sickle cell is that the spleen, which is responsible for managing red blood cells in the body, doesn't work quite properly. So it could easily be damaged as well. So those are some of the things in extreme cases where you could have other conditions. So organ damage is very, very common.
And to add to, you said something from the beginning that during, like, when people are diagnosed, they are told by medical experts that they will not live beyond the age of 5 or 18. Why do you think, like, they tell them that?
Like I said, years ago, a few decades ago, because there wasn't much, like I said, now, there's so much progress in terms of medicine that there's a lot of things that used to happen decades ago now are being curtailed. So for example, maybe 50 years ago, there wasn't anything, there was no discovery about stem cells, for example. And then also even the diagnosis, people weren't being tested. Even about 40 years ago in this country, babies were not being screened. But now every baby is screened at birth. There's, day 5, there is the heel prick test as they do, and, not just sickle cell, but other conditions as well. So, in those days, if you don't know your child has sickle cell, you wouldn't be able to manage it. So, the likelihood that they would die earlier is there, and that's why people, those days will say that, they could die as early as 5, or they would have so many crises that by the time they're 15 or 18, they die off because, they're not managed properly. But these days, there are more effective ways of managing the symptoms, the condition, that, people are able to live longer and, achieve higher fees than before. So it's more of just the discovery of how the condition can be managed. So that has, increased the chances of people having a better quality of life now than a few decades ago. Yes.
Yeah, talking about the curing, we've all heard about this stem transplant and stuff, but it's still expensive.
Yes.
That people cannot go for it. But I heard someone has been cured from it last time when I read the news. Apart from this stem transplants, what other measures are there?
Okay. Well, in this country, the stem cell bone marrow transplant is actually available on the NHS. It is available on the NHS in the UK. In America, of course, that's also different health system they have there. If as long as you have your health insurance, you have it. So yes, it can be expensive. I agree, but in this country, the good news is that it's available. So if but of course, your consultant will refer you on to that, and it is offered in this country, I know, for now, as a last resort, especially for people who are not very stable. Because with sickle cell sufferers, some people are stable, they don't get too many crises, and others are also on the other extreme where they just get crisis all the time, no matter what they do. So it's seen as a long-term solution for them. But yes, it is available.
And these joint pains, are they associated to rheumatic pains or something? Okay,
so some people refer to it as rheumatism.
Oh, okay.
So those are the crises. So rheumatoid, it comes from the word rheumatoid, and rheumatoid is got to do with bones, and then the joints and pains. So that's where the word comes from. So, for example, for most people coming from, especially from West Africans, they hear things like rheumatism. And that's because, like I said, decades ago, there wasn't much education about it. So although the prevalence is very high amongst Black people, and at the moment the statistics, as I know it, especially for West Africans, every 1 in 4 actually has the trait. So that tells you that's quite high. So it's even possible that possible that every few families you will have people with the trait or even the disease in there. So it's quite prevalent. But years ago, a few decades ago, there wasn't much awareness about it, much education. So people didn't know much. All they knew was that people had, regularly had pains, rheumatism, as they would say, painful crisis. But that's what it is.
Okay. And with this cure, are there any side effects, and the medication that they take as well?
I believe, like everything else, there are, and depending on whether everything's to do, just like bone marrow, whether it's leukemia, transplant, depending on whether the match that you get the right match, whether the thing with transplants and I'm not an expert here, but the little that I know is that sometimes, even with organ transplants, people, the body rejects it, either immediately or after a period later. So it depends on the individual, it depends on, how the process is done. But largely, they are successful. And people who've gone through it, it's been more beneficial to them than detrimental.
Okay. Well, viewers, we've heard a lot about this sickle cell. And I'll urge you to send in your questions, and I'm going to read all of it for you to get all your answers. We are going to take a commercial break for now, and when we come back, we will hear more from our medical experts. So don't leave your seats, just stay glued to it, and we'll be right back.
Ivory Party Hire and Event Planning is one of the UK's leading event companies. There are several event planning companies, but the best of the rest is Ivory Party Hire. Our specialty is creating quality, unique events with stunning delivery and integrating each and every element, from decoration, party equipment hires, event planning, etc. We provide a wide range of bespoke events, from private parties and weddings to conferences, product launching, charity balls, and high-profile special functions. Our team works all over the UK and internationally. Our creativity, passion, and customer service is second to none. Contact Ivory Party Hire and Event on mobile
07400071417. Email info@ivorypartyhire.co.uk. Website www.ivorypartyhire.co.uk.
Ivory Party Hire and Event Planning. Imaginary made real.
Thank you once again for watching Yes to Healthy Life on Great Television. As we were talking, we were discussing earlier on, if you've just logged in, we were discussing on the topic sickle cell. We are back and we are privileged to have here our medical experts, Mrs. Hannatu Sule Asiedu Kran, once more. She's been here before, and she has taken another time to come here and educate us on this topic. We were talking about the various types of sickle cell, what it does, what the sickle cell is. But I've heard something about thalassemia. Mm-hmm. And can you tell us what that is, actually?
So there are different types of sickle cell disease. Okay. Normally when we say sickle cell, the common one will be the one with the SS trait.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's the common one. But then there are other types. So the thalassemia, mm-hmm.
which is similar, is also a form of sickle cell disease. And then there is alpha. So with the thalassemia, there's alpha thalassemia, there's beta thalassemia, and then there's beta zero thalassemia. So they're different from and they're all similar, as in the mutation of the gene on the DNA that you get from your parents. And they all characterize similar symptoms of getting painful crisis and then being constantly anemic. I mean, the blood levels being lower than normal. So constantly being as they would say, clinically anemic. So because the blood levels are low. So that's where the thalassemia is a form of the sickle cell disease as well. And even with the thalassemia, you have the alpha and the beta and the zero thalassemia. But those are what we call with the C. So instead of so if somebody had sickle cell thalassemia, for example, their code will be SC. And if there's a carrier, there will be AC, for example. And then all the other details about the alpha and the zero I'm talking about, that's left to the hematologists and the big doctors to deal with, because that's very technical. It's just their blood, tested, but they're all similar when it comes to the symptoms that they produce or the condition that they produce. They all have crisis, they all are anemic, etc. All the risks are the same, similar.
Okay. Talking about the pain, what is the distribution of pain in painful crisis, and why do some patients get more painful crisis than others?
Okay. So usually the pains are commonly on the joints. And then the hand. So if you look at the hand, all the different joints. So sometimes you see them, they've got, especially with babies, there's what we call dactylitis, where they get swollen hands, and it's just the joints are all swollen. So the joints, the elbows, the back, usually the back. Then it affects the spine. So they'll tell you they've got severe back pain. And then the legs, so it's just especially the joints, but it could be virtually anywhere, because remember, the pains come across come about when the red blood cells get into that sickle shape, and then they block the vessels at the different places. And with our joints, the vessels might be, they will have a bit, the twists and turns.
Yeah.
So if you get those blockages happening in those places, then they result in the pain. So that's why they're very common in those areas. Yes. But so it could be anywhere, but mainly, commonly, those joints, and then the back, arms, legs, everywhere really. And then you said the other question.
I said, why do some patients get more painful crises than others?
Yes, so like I said, first of all, it's about how one manages themselves.
Yeah.
So if you're looking after yourself very well and not exposing yourself to so much infection, then because an infection could lead to a crisis, commonly. And then also, generally, for some people, especially with young children, everyone is born with what we call hemoglobin F.
Yeah.
Fetal hemoglobin. That helps to protect, especially the younger children, a bit for a while. So it's common to find that with some children, they wouldn't get so many episodes, because they have some sort of protection there. The fetal hemoglobin is still very active, so they don't get too many cells getting sickled at that time. So they tend to be stable. Of course, there are also adults who are more stable than others. So it depends on which part of the spectrum you are and how best you're also looking after yourself to prevent, those episodes. So, you're not getting too many infections, you're staying hydrated, just generally taking your medication, looking after yourself, not straining yourself as well. So, because stress is another thing that can lead to crisis. So that's the reason why. It's just mainly how you're looking after yourself, and some people are more stable than others.
Okay. Okay. I can see some people are logged on to our Facebook page. Welcome on Abi Ejapon. Derek Esiama, you're also welcome, and thank you for logging in. We have Solomon also watching us. Felicia Mensa, thank you also for watching us. There's a question here. Royal House Chapel says, Africa, we are in trouble. And then his question is, how do you handle a sibling or a family member who you come across on his or her crisis? It says what? It says, what first aid can you recommend to that person?
In crisis.
Yeah.
So the first aid is, to give them painkillers to manage the pain because I'm told it's very excruciating. So obviously your first bet is to give them painkillers to get the pain down.
Yeah.
And then is it that they're not well? Have they got an infection? Are they dehydrated? Do they need some more fluids, etc.? And then also the environment. In extreme weather conditions, so extreme cold, extreme hot, could trigger crisis. So it's also important to look at the environment. You have to constantly monitor what the environment they find themselves in. Because the extreme cold, can lead to the cells getting sickled, and then extreme heat, because you're getting dehydrated, can get the cells going very quickly, and then they're blocking, and then you get crisis. So so first aid, I guess if they are in pain, first aid, get them painkillers as quickly as you can to manage it, and then you can go on to look at what else. If they've got an infection, the infection needs to be treated, and then if you're not eating well, of course, get them to eat.
So with the painkiller, is it just paracetamol that you can recommend? Or?
Yes, paracetamol. It's a common painkiller available out there. But then beyond that, I would advise that anybody who knows that they have that condition, of course, in this country, as long as you've been diagnosed, you will be assigned a consultant. So you will be, regularly monitored, followed up, by a health professional. So there will be some kind of management there. Where to go to if you need something stronger, and most of them need something stronger actually. So you go to the various levels, move up. But of course, some of them are not readily available on the counter, so a doctor has to prescribe them. So
okay. I have a question here. What is your opinion about this hydroxyurea treatment or something? Yeah.
Hydroxyurea is one medication that's used in the management of sickle cell disease.
Okay.
Commonly in America, it's very common in America, where it's actually prescribed to I think in some places, almost every sickle cell disease sufferer is prescribed that. In the UK, it's not available to everybody.
Oh, okay.
It's just, as far as I'm aware, it's for people who are not very stable, get more than, I think more than 3 episodes of crisis in a year, then they would be recommended, to have that. It's a bit controversial in some arenas because it's also known to be used in for cancer treatment, some cancers. So it's used actually in chemo. So then the controversy there is about, all the other effects that come with it. That is it more useful to use it for sickle cell, or the fact that because it's actually used in cancer treatment. Yeah. So that's where the controversy comes with hydroxyurea. But it's actually been found to be, the reason why it's used for sickle cell is that it helps to minimize the extent of sickling. So then it minimizes the number of crises that people get. So that's the controversy there. But I guess it's effective in that way. And then also, yes, of course, it has its side effects. And with long-term use, I think there's also an issue of organ damage as well. So that's where some people may recommend and some won't. Okay. So that's just about it. But I guess it does the job that it's meant for, yes.
Okay, and there's another question. It says, what's your opinion on the relationship between sickle cell traits and protection against malaria?
Okay, so it's not really about my opinion, but what it is that the fact is that it's been found that the malaria parasite is not able to stay alive in people with the sickle cell trait or the disease, the cell. It doesn't survive in it. So somehow the condition confers some immunity to those people from the disease malaria. So the Plasmodium, that's the parasite, the malaria parasite that gets into the blood cells and eats it up. It somehow, should I say, the sickling cells are not conducive for them, so they don't survive in it. So that's where they get some immunity, and then they don't normally, or they don't get it as often as somebody who doesn't have the trait. Yeah. So yes, there is, it offers some immunity from malaria, the condition, yeah.
And let's talk about the testing. The testing of the sickle cell. How is the testing done?
Okay.
And yeah.
So in the UK, like I said, all babies are screened. Especially, we know that it's a trait that's common with Black, African, and Caribbean backgrounds, and Mediterranean and Asian background. So for every child of that background, you will be tested for sickle cell. But in the UK, there's a general baby screening program that at day 5, when a child is born, they've got the PKU test, as they call it, the heel prick test, where they test for, I think there are 5 different conditions that are tested at birth to see, and sickle cell is one of them. So straight away it's picked up that this child, so if there's a baby that has the trait, whether it's a carrier or the disease, they'll be able to tell straight away. So those with the condition, the double SS or SC or whatever, straight away are picked up and then followed up on, and then they are put on a long-term, should I say, management program where they are assigned a health professional, so a doctor, a pediatrician to start with until, to manage the condition. And this is all just obviously from the public health point of view, which is where my concern is. From the public health point of view, if you pick it up very early, then you're able to manage, help people to manage it properly, and then they have a better quality of life, other than developing more complications, and then it comes back to the
Ivory Party Hire and Event Planning is one of the UK's leading event companies. There are several event planning companies, but the best of the rest is Ivory Party Hire. Our specialty is creating quality, unique events with stunning delivery and integrating each and every element, from decoration, party equipment hires, event planning, etc. We provide a wide range of bespoke events, from private parties and weddings to conferences, product launching, charity balls, and high-profile special functions. Our team works all over the UK and internationally. Our creativity, passion, and customer service is second to none. Contact Ivory Party Hire and Event on mobile
07400071417. Email info@ivorypartyhire.co.uk. Website www.ivorypartyhire.co.uk.
Ivory Party Hire and Event Planning. Imaginary made real.
Just as certain, rare conditions are associated with Caucasians. So it's just one of those natural things that we found out about, because yes, tests have shown that they're not really associated with purely white Caucasian population. So it's just that's just nature, I would say.
Yeah.
So we'll find the best way.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, even some theorists will say that because it occurs in this race or this population, somehow nature has also found a way of conferring some survival characteristics. For example, like the malaria immunity, for example. Because malaria is only common in these tropical areas. So it's one of those natural things, I would say. I hope Royal House is happy with that.
The types of
the question about the AA and AS. So we talked about it earlier. Maybe you just joined us. I'll just go over it again. I said that we have different types of sickle cell disease. If you don't have sickle cell trait or disease, your DNA will be AA. Yeah. If you have it, then you'll be A. If you have the trait, you'll be A with an S or with a C.
Oh, okay.
And if you have the disease, then it will be an SS or an SC, for example. So, and the C is the thalassemia type, and the various subtypes under the thalassemia, either the alpha thalassemia, beta thalassemia, or the zero thalassemia.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that answers the question, or if she wants to know about, how there's AA, AS, SS, etc. Those
I think that's the reason why
she's asking.
Okay,
so I'll go over that again, about the fact that we get our genes, our genetic code, we get half from each person has 46. So we get 23 from your mother, 23 from your father.
Oh, okay.
It has to be half and half, and that's what makes you up in terms of your genetic code. So if you happen to get an A from one parent and you get an S or a C from the other parent, that will be your combination, which you carry, either the trait. So if you have just one being an A and the other being the S or the C, then you just have the trait, you're a carrier, as we'll say. If you have both being either the SS or the SC, then you have the disease. And like I said, if your parent had one, or one parent had one and one parent had the other, each time there is a conception, so each time you're going to have a child, then the probability of the different combinations will occur. So, and that depends on whether one parent is AA, don't have the trait at all, or they have it, they're a carrier, or they have the full disease. Then you have the various interactions to produce that outcome.
Okay, so what should future parents know?
Okay, I would say that it's good to have some sort of genetic counseling, especially for Black ethnic minority groups, knowing that sickle cell is a hereditary disease, what we call genetic counseling. It's good to know what your status is, what your group, your sickling group is, because of course there are different blood groups that could be tested for. It's not just whether it's A, B, or O, etc. The ABO system is different from the sickling system, which is what we are talking about. I would say that it's good to know your status, so that, and of course who your prospective partner as well is, so that you make informed decisions. Like I always say, if you have the knowledge, then you are empowered to make better decisions than having to make fatal ones later. So I would recommend genetic counseling. Perhaps, I know it sounds a bit controversial for some people, perhaps before getting together, before marriage, for example. Just so, I wouldn't say that should prevent you, but I would say that having that information is a powerful tool, so you know what the possibilities are, and then you make informed decisions. That's what I would say. And I will also say to, I know amongst the Black ethnic minority community, health professionals are having quite a hard time engaging with families who have family members or children or family members with a condition. I would like to say that there is help out there. It's very easily managed. The systems are there to manage those conditions. So for some communities, it's a big thing when they're told about it, and they don't, there's in some cases there is some sort of stigma, and so people don't want to come out there and access the help out there. But what I will say is that go out there, there is help out there. If one is tested, the good news is that over here every baby is screened anyway. If the test comes as positive for you, I would say the good thing is the services are available, access it, other than being in denial and preventing your family member or your child from accessing the help that's out there, and then it turns to something else, because sometimes again depending on the faith of the people, everything is muddled up, and sometimes the outcomes are not very good, and health professionals are having a very hard time engaging. So I would say go out there, get it's possible to live life. And for me as a person, everybody has a purpose for being born. So whether they're born with an SS or SC or whatever, they have a potential of attaining the highest feat that everybody else can. You just have to give them the chance and don't hold back. Access the help that's out there, and then live to the full.
Okay. And our last question, can you give an advice to the upcoming young ones who are about to get married? Can you advise them?
Well, that's what I just said. That it sounds a bit controversial for some people. The fact that you ask your fiance, for example, I'm AS or I'm SS. What are you? Okay, if we are both SS or we are both AS, then the possibility of us having SS children is there. Like I'm saying, that's why I said that. Having that knowledge is a powerful tool for you to make an informed decision. So the decision is up to you, but it's important that you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you decide. Nobody's saying that you should break up your relationship or not marry the next person. But you're better armed when you know what to do.
Yeah.
And you know what help is also available than just, doing that. But not any day will I tell anybody not to get together with somebody with a condition. No, it's not a death sentence.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say so.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Madam. And viewers, we've come to the end of our talk show for today. And there's an advice for the upcoming young ones. All we'll tell you is make sure you test for sickle cell before saying I do. Same time next week. Same time next week from 3 to 4 p.m. We'll bring you another exciting topic, which is sponsored by Hannatu Foundation, an NGO which creates awareness for various health issues. And with Hannatu, we always say every life matters. So see you next week. Bye.
I like this. Stone boy. Area. We